Hi, I am Melissa and I am an alcoholic and I am here with the Life Recovery Workbook as step 7. I'm going to start off with the reading in the workbook. Um, it says, step 7, we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. After we have become ready for God to work on removing our character defects, the seventh step is fairly easy, asking Him to do His work. When we have truly worked step 6, we clearly see that our defects have been holding us back from being a channel for God's Spirit. From a sincere desire to be changed outside, we humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings and build our character. This is a turning point in our recovery. While we have been focused earlier on stopping the progression of our deadly addictions and compulsions, we must now also let go of the spiritually deadly traits that have kept us from being who we really are. We begin to allow God's Spirit to flow into our lives and replace character defects and character strengths. We get out of our own way, accepting that our way of dealing with life has been problematic for us, others, and God. This is part of the development of humility. Some of us can use humility with humiliation. We have been through a lot of humiliating experiences because of our addiction. We have been humiliated by the consequences of addiction, such as jails or broken relationships. We have been humiliated in childhood. Most of us want to avoid being humiliated at all costs. So when the word humility is used here, many will not want to have anything to do with it. We have not understood that humility is a quality of spirit that opens the door of our hearts to God. It has nothing to do with the humiliation and shame. Humility is an attitude in which we see ourselves in totality, the good and the bad parts, the honesty and dishonesty, self centeredness and selflessness. In other words, as neither the best nor the worst, just as a human. Humility is not a sign of weakness. Admitting the negatives as well as the positives is a sign of authenticity. We become real with God and ourselves. We may be confused because we have believed in God and had strong religious convictions, yet we have not been able to stop using substances, people, food, or sex. Our Bible studies and prayer meetings have not helped us to curb our angry outbursts at home, our controlling attitudes at work, or our problem with anxiety and fears. This is usually because we have tried to play God, relying on self will and self propulsion. Somehow we think that we must take charge of our recovery, direct our progress, and push for changes. We may even try to whiz through the rest of the steps as if recovery were a race. Our plans, our strategies, and the tactics on which we have depended on to get us through life have been nothing more than self will. We became focused on what we wanted and when we wanted it. Despite our convictions and beliefs, pride and ego edged God out. Consequently, step 7 challenges us to embark on the development of our spirits, to let go of directing and managing our image, and to throw ourselves onto the potter's wheel to be molded and shaped by his hand, as described in Jeremiah 18. In Isaiah 45:9, an ominous warning comes to Isaiah from God. What sorrow awaits those who argue with their creator? If we do not allow God to mold and change us, but still cling to some addictive behaviors such as self righteous anger or controlling rage, our addiction will eventually return. We must grow and allow God to shape our internal character, or relapse is inevitable. The awe inspiring news is that God has a great desire to free us from addictive behaviors and to clean up the resulting character defects. I restore the crushed spirit of the humble and revive the courageous. Uh, I'm sorry, let me restart that. I restore the crushed spirit of the humble and revive the courage of those with repentant hearts. I have seen what they do, but I will heal them anyway. Isaiah 57, verse 15 and 18. The only prerequisite is the contrite and humble spirit for which the first 6 steps have been preparing us. As we have assessed the damaging effects of addiction on our lives and the lives of others, our desire to be cleansed and molded has intensified. We have found that sobriety in itself is a good goal, but to have serenity, solid integrity, and self respect as well, we must have a change of heart and behavior. With this step, we simply and humbly ask for the removal of our defects and prepare to act differently. Our first taste of humility was when we admitted our powerlessness over our addiction. Usually, our admission has been the result of repeated problems and humiliations. Now we see that this is just the beginning of a lifelong process in which God brings us closer to his image and purpose. God will not hammer down the door of our hearts. Look, I stand at the door and knock. Jesus says in Revelation 3, verse 20, if you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and we will share a meal together as friends. We must open the door by reaching for humility and earnestly seeking to do his will, knowing that depending on our own individual strength is useless. After becoming ready for God to come in, step 6, and then asking to have our shortcomings removed, step 7, we must do our part in the character building process by putting positive new traits into action. We begin to practice new ways of thinking, behaving, and treating people. Where we have been dishonest, we act honestly. Where we have been selfish, we act with consideration and selflessness. Where we have hidden from responsibility, we face it with courage. Where we have run from conflict, we seek to resolve it peacefully. When we begin to practice new behaviors, they will feel forced and unnatural, as if we were learning a new dance step with two left feet. If we were intentional, if we are intentional and consistent over time, we will be gratified to find that our authentic personality is emerging. As a freshly cleaned up as a freshly cleaned cup can hold refreshing water, we are open to God's filling of our spirit. Freedom from addiction will become more automatic and we will have clear self respect as we draw closer to God and to others. Okay, so the questions are, um, and the first set of questions are clearing out the mess. Have I developed enough humility from my experiences in addiction to see that I need to let God work in my heart? It didn't even say it. Sorry. It always does this to me when I first start. Have I developed enough humility from my experiences in addiction to see that I need to let God work in my heart? The next question is there any doubt that self reliance has kept God out? Describe the difference between humiliation and humility, which is basically they just read that, or I just read that. The difference between humility and humiliation is, humility is an act. It is a way of, it's not humiliation. Humiliation is like when you're a kid and you get spanked in public, right? So that's not the same at all. It's humility is to just let everything down and just say, look, I am here and I cannot do this anymore. I don't want to live like this. So please help me. And these are all the flaws. These are all the sins that I have, you know, basically committed in my life. And I need to come clean about it. And, my phone, I'm really sorry. So, all right. So the next set of questions is Giving up control. Have I ever demanded to have circumstances changed for my benefit? If so, when? Okay. Um, the next question is, have I became impatient with God's timing in the process of changing my heart and character? I know if you're anything like me, um, I have, I started out with like no patience. Okay. So if anybody who really knows me knows, that's really how I am. uh, but most people who have any kind of addiction, usually we want, especially drug addiction, okay, we want instant gratification right now. So, and God is not an instantaneous God. He is a I'm going to work with you slowly God. Okay. So yes, that for me, that's a big yes. I have been impatient, but that's also a character defect. And that is one of my shortcomings that I have been asking for work with. And slowly but surely, the more you pray about it, uh, it does, it happens. All right. It's in like the 9 step promises in the big book. If we are painstaking by this phase of our development, we will be surprised as to, oh goodness, I thought I could have it memorized. We'd be surprised as to pretty much basically the things that have happened so far. um, I'll have to look up the 9 step promises and read them to you because they are pretty good. They're not as good as the 3rd step promises, but I can put those in here too if need be. Um, what keeps me from letting go so that God can shape my life better than I could ever imagine or have created myself? And the next set of questions is pride born of hurt. Okay. Is it hard for me to ask anyone, even God, for help? If so, what keeps me from sharing? The next question is, what experiences in my family of origin have brought about this self sufficiency? Okay. Have I held back from asking God for what I need because I am projecting my disappointments onto Him? And do I trust Him? Am I willing to give up self sufficiency and pride to persistently ask for God's help in removing my shortcomings? The next set of questions is under a humbled heart. Okay. Have I ever compared my faults, problems, and sins to blatant sins of others, such as robbery, murder, and adultery, to justify avoiding deeper work on my own character defects? The second part of that question is, what does this do for me? All right, so I will say, have I ever compared my faults, problems? Yes. Okay. Because that's that self justifying, self righteous attitude. It's, when, but I was also the one who, robbed a bank. So people probably compared themselves to me, but that's okay. Apples and oranges, right? Uh, but, when I hear, people and they say, and that's kind of why I think meetings help. All right. When you go to meetings and you hear like, speaker meetings and stuff, and you hear people's testimonies and everything. Um, and we share stories about things that we went through. Um, a lot, and I am not glorifying my past at all, but my story is pretty big, so when I don't really have a lot of people to compare my story to, that's been um, that's done worse things. That sounded really bad, but when you rob a bank and you've had three people try to kill you, and you've had a heart attack, you died for 4 minutes. That's just not a lot for people to compare to, especially like I. But to answer that question, I I do see how avoiding, you know when you justify your wrongs by other people's actions, that's not going to help you. Okay, because God knows your actions. That's period, point blank. So comparing it isn't going to help you at all. The only thing that you should get out of somebody else's story is comfortability and seeking vulnerability with that person to be able to go through your fourth, fifth, and sixth step with, which you really need to do all 12 steps with one person. And like I said, I really don't recommend doing your steps by yourself. I just, in AA, you can't openly talk about God. Like, it is about a higher power. It is about, but your higher power can be anything. And, you know, I don't feel like my higher power can be anything. I feel like my higher power is God. And the only way through to God is Jesus Christ. That's it. And I can't really, you know, because I'm a GSR for my home group, I had to, there's just like certain things we're not supposed to do. And this allows me to cross those boundaries and not, in my opinion, deny my God, so to speak, which a friend brought that to my attention. I was on my way to a meeting and I was talking to him about it, and he was like, so does that mean that are you denying God? And that's what really got the ball rolling for me to do this, because this is more, of God helping you instead of AA. And I'm not at all belittling AA, because it tremendously helped me and I highly recommend it. But once you get to a certain point in your recovery and you want to go deeper with your religion, you know, there's just some things that, like you, this is what I felt called to do, because, I'm a woman and I'm not supposed to preach. It says so in the Bible. People want to argue that because of Joyce Meyer. Joyce Meyer is awesome. All right. I love listening to a lot of stuff she says, but that's just not what it's not what women are called to do. We are called to learn and then create disciples. And this is kind of my way of doing that. And I'm also doing it in a way with recovery. So, and in the 12 step, you are supposed to carry the message to the alcoholic, the addict, the person in recovery who still suffers. So I am doing both in one shot here. So, okay. The next question. All right. Oh, but after that one, it says, what does this do for me? It doesn't do anything but help you justify by you comparing yourself to other people's sinful nature, addictions, the way of life. Uh, it If you compare instead of working on the inside, you are prolonging the inevitable. And it's also giving yourself excuses not to fully do your steps and to recover. So that's what that does. It lets you sit in your pride, and you know you can't, you're not supposed to have prideful behavior, because pride leads to a lot of things that we don't have time to talk about. You know what I mean? So, all right. The next question, okay, is have I ever justified myself because I attend church, sing in the choir, and do service work? And the second part of that question is, do I judge others for their lack of participation or involvement? All right, so have I ever justified myself because I attend church? Um, I don't think that I have, but I unintentionally, out of old habits and behaviors, I do judge others, but it's not. I catch it right away. You know, do I think that everybody that is in recovery should go to church and, you know, get baptized and, have a better life? Because yes, I do. And but I can't judge them because I was that way. It's, and I you can't push it on anybody, because if you do, it could ruin future endeavors. It's exactly what it says in the big book. And when I was working at that rehab, I worked at Boca Recovery Center in Bloomington. That was one of the big things there too, is you can't push somebody into doing anything they don't want to do, because it can ruin. I mean, they may be on the brink of it, but once you act pushy, they are going to resist. So, but anyways, but my point is, being judgmental was one of my character defects, and it's a shortcoming that I do work on all the time. If I see somebody wearing something that they really shouldn't be wearing, I'm like, all right, just all right. I catch myself, but it's thought replacement, and it's something that I'm working on. Okay. After self examination in steps 4 through 6, have I been struggling with self hatred and shame? I feel like um, shame was something that I dealt with for a while after I got sober. And depending on who I'm having a conversation with and what we're talking about, I still sometimes have like a moment where I feel mad at myself, and I will feel shame. But there's a difference between that and letting it go, and then or between that and then absorbing yourself in it. Okay, you can do that too much. You cannot just beat yourself up. You can't beat a dead horse. You're not supposed to do that. So, but we will have those emotions where we will feel guilt and shame later, even though we've been through our steps. And it's usually because of something somebody says to us. But our best response to that is, you know I am very aware of what I've done, and i have I have stopped, I've pivoted, and I am walking in a different direction. So, if somebody is being judgmental towards you, ask them, to maybe, think about working on a step or two out of the program, because after a certain amount of time being sober and everything, people shouldn't be that way towards you. And I mean, we can't really blame anybody, because I mean, it is our fault, you know, but there's a difference between, yeah, some people, we're not going to get our amends. We're not going to get the acceptance, and we're not going to have the relationship that we want. But anyways, I kind of trailed off on that one, but moving forward. Okay. Which one was it? Guilt or shame? Okay, well. Oh, yeah, because I just flipped every page. Sorry about that. Okay. Do I realize that the secret sins of pride, judgment, and comparison are just as serious as the more blatant ones? Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much kind of what I was just talking about. Have addictions and advertises, hang on a minute, adversities humbled me enough to open the door to God's forgiveness? Okay, sorry. All right. The next set of questions are under declared not guilty. Steps 6 and 7 are one path to acceptance of this verse. All of us have fallen short not only of our own ideals, but also of God's glory. Have I been trying to measure up and show God that I can be good by doing good works? Have I tried to show him that I am okay? Oops, I went too far. Be good by doing good works. Have I tried to show him that I am okay? Can I now trust in faith that Jesus will not only make up for my weaknesses, but will also begin to remove shortcomings as I surrender humbly to his will? Okay, the next set of questions is labeled into the open. Have I disguised my addiction by covering it up with a good image? And have I hidden behind a good reputation? Do I still fear that others will find out about my addiction? Will my pride be hurt if someone knows the extent of it? Am I willing to share it if, delete that. Do I still fear that others will find out about my addiction? Okay. I guess it didn't even sin. All right. So oh, yeah. The next question. Can I release to God my self centered fears of being known and losing my image? If so, write a prayer to God expressing your desire to do so. Okay, so can I release God of self centered fears of being known and losing my image? Um, okay, the next set of questions is eyes of love. God already sees us as we will be when his work is done. Am I aware of any blocks that keep me from asking him into my heart to do that work, and what are they? And this is the last question. It says, is my confidence in God's willingness to remove my shortcomings renewed? How and why? All right. So this is the a prayer for step 7. And then I will also read the 7th step prayer, which is, all right. Dear God, search my heart and reveal to me my arrogance or pride that is separating me from you, the people around me, and the person you have called me to be. My shortcomings are numerous, and my attempts to fix them always end in failure. Please remove these shortcomings from me. Do for me what I cannot do for myself. Give me the courage to do whatever it takes to become victorious over these problems. Thank you for the work you are doing in me and for the opportunity to transform my life. Amen. And then it says, shortcomings is a very polite way of saying sin, weakness, defects in character, addiction, compulsion, dependency, or 1,000 other conditions and symptoms that indicate we are falling short to the glory of God and the lives He has called us to live. Asking God to remove our shortcomings is always a joint venture between us and Him. Since we have spent much of our lives proving we can't fix ourselves, it is time to finally ask God to do what we will never have the power or insight to do ourselves. And the 7th step prayer for AA is, I humbly offer myself to God as I then understood Him to do. I'm going to have to stand up and read it. Uh, to do with me as He would. I place myself unreservedly under His care and direction. I admit for the first time that of myself I was nothing, that without Him I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away, root and branch. And that is on page 13 of the big book. So, all right. Those are the questions. And I will end this video and I will be back later for step 8. Almost done. Thank you.